Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to East Central Missouri and the world, and welcome to the James Strong Show podcast number 339. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making us a part of your day. I appreciate it. This podcast was recorded on the morning of Saturday, November the 25th, from the James Strong Studio in Western St. Charles County. Last week's podcast on America's love affair with the ICE, internal combustion engine. I will tell you, it's been months since I got so many emails, so much reaction to a podcast. Most of it being, hey, what are you talking about? You kind of jumped the shark, went overboard. The whole country doesn't love internal combustion engines. Well, that's true. And most of my commenters reminded me of that. And I wasn't meant to say that the whole country loves this. I mean, the whole country doesn't love anything. When you use a statement like everybody or nobody, it's generally wrong. People in my circles, car people, transportation people, love the internal combustion engines. Men love internal combustion engines, okay? And my point was, in the podcast, was that, look, internal combustion engines are wonderful. Nothing against electric cars, but internal combustion engines are just wonderful. They're fun. They're cool. But like the electric cars, gasoline cars aren't the second coming of Christ. They're not the only thing out there. But I got a lot of comments on last week's podcast. So if you haven't listened to it, maybe you want to, because again, lots of people commented on it. If people are commenting on the podcast, that means they're listening and they're interested. So mission accomplished. If I didn't entertain or if I didn't educate, at least I piqued somebody's interest, many people's interest, obviously, from the emails. So what I'm doing this week is I'm going to go ahead and build on that. And not so much on gasoline cars, but on technology. And technology a lot of times has to do with electric cars, self-driving cars, the future. What is the future of transportation in this country? It's not what the captains of industries, some captains of industries believe it is. And I'm going to go into that. But technology as a whole is, first of all, you can't avoid it. We've always had technology. Technology has always meant moving forward, doing things more efficiently, doing things better. What technology has never really done overnight is reinvented the wheel. What technology has done throughout history is made the wheel stronger, made the wheel faster, made the wheel more efficient. But when the smoke clears, we've still got a wheel, just a better version. Technology nowadays seems to be wanting to eliminate the wheel, and that's where the wheels are starting to fall off. And I'll get into that, about how technology has just jumped the shark. Technology has maybe progressed too quickly, okay? But that's what my essay is going to be about technology and how it's just gone too far, too fast, and has failed, okay? Before I get into that podcast about technology, a couple of things. First of all, I made me smile earlier this week. I was listening to one of the sports shows in the morning, and Randy Carricker, who's on 101.1 here in St. Louis, a sports station, he's an old KMOX guy. KMOX, the voice of St. Louis, used to be the station that everybody listened to. I mean, KMOX had like a 35% market share. Which nowadays is just it doesn't happen. If you get 10% of that, you're smiling, okay? But they had a 35% market share. KMOX was the station that everybody just listened to, and that's where Randy Carricker cut his teeth. That's where he started. And he made a statement one time, and he blurted out a fact, and he said, "And now you know, and via radio." And that made me smile, because Randy Carricker used that term, which was a statement used by a guy named John McCormick, who was on overnights on KMOX. John McCormick, the man who walked and talked at midnight. And that pause was always in there. And he would give a story, and after the story was finished, he'd say, and now you know, and via radio. Randy Carricker said that. He made that statement, and I even texted him. And I told him it made me smile. I also told him, I said, you do understand that 3 people listening to this broadcast maybe knew what you were even talking about. Because the sports crowd that listens to him was not the crowd that listened to John McCormick, I guess except for me. So if 3 people understood it, that would have been a lot. But it certainly made me smile. Yesterday, let me back up. I tend to, I don't want to say I fight authority, but the way things are nowadays, I know technology is supposed to make things easier, but friends, a lot of times they're making things a lot more difficult. And I have a time adapting to the way things are now and understanding why this is better. Yesterday, what I needed to do was, before I worked on the Jaguar, I needed to replace the headlamp on the trophy wife's Ford Taurus. It burned out. That stuff happens, okay? I researched it. It was going to take a little bit of doing. You had to remove the tube with the mass air sensor, the whole box that holds the filter unit in, but then you could get to the light bulb fairly easily. But first I had to buy a light bulb, okay? So the first thing I did is I went to the auto parts store. First I think, I'll go to Walmart. It'll be cheaper. I thought, ooh, this is Black Friday. I'm not going to Walmart. It won't be cheaper. It might be cheaper, but I'm not going to play that game. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Walmart. But before I did that, I went to the gym, okay? And the gym that I go to, Club Fitness, has an app that you have to use. And they used to give you a little card with a barcode on it. You scan the barcode, you get in the door because they don't have attendance anymore. It's a 24-hour facility that you can get into any time, but they really cut back on the attendance, which is fine because you had the barcode, it opened the door. They wanted you to upload the app. Okay. I had tons of trouble. You upload the app, it wouldn't work, it wouldn't do this. That's okay. Call us and we'll help you. I called them. Nobody helps you. You leave a message and then they call you back at their convenience, which is the way things work nowadays. Unfortunately, their convenience is usually not my convenience. So they leave a message and then you call back. And they say they'll call you back later at their convenience, which isn't your convenience. After several of these, I finally emailed back and forth with these people because they're not going to talk to you. They're just going to email you. But I got it. They helped me out. We figured it out. We got the app to work. I use my app to get in the door now just fine. Club Fitness wants you to upload the new app, the Club Fitness Plus app. And you have to do this by, I think it was December 4th. Then they changed it to December 1st. But you got to do it or you won't be able to get in the door. All right, fine. Go to the App Store, upload the app. Doesn't work. So I went to the gym yesterday morning. Door wouldn't work. But there was an attendant there. He opened the door. Hey, yeah, the door isn't working, so sorry, I'll let you in. I said, why are you folks making things hard? The door doesn't work, and now I can't upload this app. Well, he got very defensive. Well, this isn't me. This is Club Fitness. I said, okay, I don't mean you. I mean the collective you. You as a Club Fitness employee. Why is Club Fitness making this so difficult? I can't upload this app. He says, well, I'm the manager here. I can help you. You've come to the right person. Great. So why can't I upload the app? He said, well, did you go to the App Store and try to upload it? I said, yeah, that's exactly what I did. He said, well, there's the problem. You should have just looked at the email that we sent you. I said, you didn't send me an email. I never got an email. Okay, what's your contact information? I gave him my phone number. I gave him my email. That was not what they had in the system. So they updated my contact information. They sent me an email. They said, now take this, use the link, and you should be just fine. Haven't done it yet, but we'll see. But again, they just made it so difficult. And I asked them, I said, what's wrong with this app? They said, well, we want to be able to have you communicate with our trainers. I'm thinking, I don't want to talk to your trainers. But I'm in sales. And I know what that really means. You want a better opportunity to sell me stuff. Okay, so I will go out of my way, put a lot of effort forth so you can try to sell me more. Wonderful. I get it. That's how it works. Went to the gym, went to Advanced Auto to buy a light bulb. Here's all the light bulbs, different sizes, but I don't know what size to get. So I asked the attendant, hey, which one of these do I need for a 2014 Ford Taurus SEL? He said, no, let me see. You need a 2014 or a 9014 bulb. Okay, fine. We'll go up here. There's several different options, but they only come in 2-packs. I just need one. He said, we only sell them in 2-packs. Sorry. Okay. Well, the cheapest one they had was $57.99 for 2 bulbs, but you get a $10 rebate. I said, okay, well, I guess I'll take this one here. I mean, you only sell it in 2-packs, and I'm not going to Walmart where it's crazy. I said, okay, let me check the price for you. I said, well, it says $57.99. He says, yeah, that's not always right. So he came back. He said that $67.99 after rebate. I said, oh. So it's not $57.99 before the rebate like the sign says. It's $67.99 after the rebate. He said, that's right. Okay, let me take the rebate form and I'll fill out the form. Wait a minute. The rebate form says this rebate expires September 30th, 2023. He says, oh, no, that's not true. Look at the sign, not the rebate form. I said, okay, the sign says it expires October 31st, 2023. That's past 2. He said, just send it in. Maybe they'll give you the money after all. I said, I'm not paying $77 for 2 light bulbs when I just need one. I think I'll go someplace else. Thank you for your time. So I went to Walmart on Black Friday. Now, I went in the back way, the automotive way, so I saw the automotive stuff. Because of people with sticky fingers, Walmart does have light bulbs, but because they're so expensive, they have them under lock and key. And I found a young man who opened the door for me. We got the right size, but they didn't have them in stock. Oh, great. Okay, now you've got what I want. I can only buy one, but you don't have them in stock. He was very helpful, though. He said, you know what? Let me check another Walmart, see if they have it. So he pulled out his phone, checked it out. He says, yeah, there's one in the Lake St. Louis Walmart. Great, that's by my house. He said, they've got 7 in stock. You can get it there. Wonderful. Technology helped me out there. The young man didn't have it in stock, but he told me where to get it. The next best thing. Minor victory. So I went to the Lake St. Louis Walmart, and they had it under lock and key, and they actually had the part that I needed. Wonderful. So I went to the auto parts section, and there was a man on the phone. There was only one guy back there, but he was on the phone. He laid down the phone to do something, and I said, hey, I need a key for this. Can you help me out? He says, yes, I can, but I need to finish this phone call first. Great. I'll wait till he's finished. So I'm waiting for him to finish, looking around the automotive center there at Walmart, and they've got a picture of all the people, and they've got the service manager, young lady. Just then I look up, and she's walking by. I said, oh, ma'am. I said, I need a key to get this part to buy it. Can you help me? She says, well, this guy can help you. I said, well, yeah, but he's on the phone right now. She says, oh, I don't have a key. Let me go outside and get it, which seems strange to me, but okay. So I'm waiting and waiting and waiting, and she never came back. Shortly thereafter, the man gets off the phone, said, sorry about that. How can I help you? I told him. He said, yeah, let's go get it. He opens the door, gives me the light bulb, checks me out, and I walk out the same door that the lady had walked out of. And she was smoking cigarettes with another employee. Now, here's the problem I have with that. I'm not saying people don't deserve breaks, because they do. I have no idea how long that lady was there. She may have been there since 6 o'clock in the morning. But she's the manager. She had a big sign on her that said coach, a big tag. She was the lady in charge. And she basically told me, hang tight and I'll help you, and went outside and smoked a cigarette with another employee, while the one guy was left inside to do all the heavy lifting. That just boggled my mind. When the person in charge leaves the customer hanging. But I got my light bulb. I installed it with, it didn't take much. It took a bit of time, but it wasn't a hassle. And the trophy wife now has a car with 2 light bulbs in it. So it was a victory. It took 15 rounds, but it was a victory. But should things be that difficult? I don't know. They shouldn't be, but in today's world, they just seem to be. This this is 2 days after Thanksgiving, so I probably shouldn't be fussing so much, complaining so much, because I am very thankful for everything that I've been blessed beyond imagination. Or as Dave Ramsey used to say, or I guess he still says, as Dave Ramsey says, better than I deserve. But you have to remember this bad thing, as things seem to be sometimes, they could always be a bit worse. Case in point, we could be in Gaza or we could be in the Ukraine. And I read a horrible article about this war in the Ukraine. And basically, it said every day troops of Russian infantry attack tree lines and pockmarked field east of the village of Deity, which blocks their push and surrounds the city of Advika. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. But every day Ukrainian troops cut down most of them, but the Russians keep coming. Why don't the Ukrainians shoot them all? Because the Ukrainian soldiers shoot at the advancing Russian troops until they run out of ammunition. That's right, until they run out of ammunition. And here's the thing, Russia, their population is nearly 4 times the population of Ukraine, so they can afford to lose countless thousands of soldiers for very small gains. In fact, Russia's massive losses in the nearly 2-year war have left its ground forces relying on old vehicles and poorly trained people, limiting its offensive potential. For now, they just grind out assaults on small cities on the ground. Russia lost tens of thousands of men in the 10-month battle for Bakhmut, its last notable victory. Now, the attacking Russian infantry are mostly poorly trained, often bunching up and making easy targets. That's according to Ukrainian soldiers fighting over there. Quote, they come like zombies, some wearing headlamps. A happy moment for any machine gunner, says Private Bohan Lysenko, who mans a 25-millimeter automatic cannon on a U.S.-made Bradley fighting vehicle with the 47th Brigade. Drone images show fields littered with bodies of Russian infantrymen hit by artillery. But the Russians keep coming. They're not stupid. It's a strategy, said a Bradley commander in the same company. They look for weak points, then they go there. We don't have enough ammunition to kill them all, but they have enough people. That, my friends, is the horror of war. The Russian strategy for this war is the same as it was in World War II, by the way. Just keep feeding people in. If we lose 10,000, we give them 100,000. If we lose 100,000, we throw 1 million in there. They just keep on feeding people until the opposition runs out of bullets. That, to me, is unbelievable. But that's war. Just remember that the next time you start fussing about lazy Walmart managers or mispriced parts on light bulbs. I try to, and it helps a little bit. Okay, let's get on with today's essay. Technology. It should be a tool, not a deity, okay? 2 things going on in the tech world. The driverless cars in San Francisco and the materials needed for the batteries for electric cars. Both were in the news this week, but not the main news stories, which is what I like to do with these podcasts. To me, these are huge stories, but they don't make the real news. But if you dig a little deeper, you can find them. I do. Now, shortly after midnight on August 24th, a driverless shuttle operated by General Motors company Cruise stopped in the middle of the street in downtown Austin, Texas. It then veered off the road, jumped the curb, and hit the side of a building. That's according to video footage and police reports. Now, by the time officers showed up, Cruise employees had covered the vehicle with a tarp and were trying to dislodge it. That was a complicated task considering there was no driver's seat in the car or a steering wheel. It's a driverless car. Why would you need that? Well, to jar it loose from the building it ran into, obviously. But the crash was one of several alarming mishaps involving GM's self-driving car division that have raised questions about whether vehicles are safe enough to carry passengers or be near human drivers and pedestrians. In fact, on last Sunday, Cruise co-founder Kyle Vogt resigned as chief executive. On Monday, Dan Can, his Cruise co-founder, also quit. Now, why is this a big deal? Let's go back up just a little bit. That late-night shakeup compounds uncertainty about a venture that not so long ago was seen as one of the bright spots in the tenure of GM Chief Executive Mary Barra, a champion of technology. Now, news reports about misbehaving driverless vehicles belonging to Cruise and other companies, however, have tempered expectations that the movement was on the cusp of transforming human transportation. GM is now on pace to lose more than $2 billion on Cruise this year alone. That's 16% of its operating profit. Think about that. Now, Kyle Vogt, he's a 38-year-old engineering whiz and vegan who's run marathons on each of the globe's 7 continents, and he's the second chief executive officer to depart Cruise in 2 years. He'd bristled at the backlash triggered by the mishaps, emphasizing the company was trying to reduce car crashes and deaths from human drivers. Quote, we as a society seem to be more focused on the anecdotes and headlines than on the real problems, he said back in July. And there lies the first problem. More later. Even before the June 2022 launch of Cruise paid driverless taxi service in San Francisco, red flags were popping up inside the company, including flaws flagged by employees and later cited as factors in the crash. In a span of 15 months, Cruise recalled software on its vehicles 3 times after receiving reports on collisions, and federal regulators have launched 2 safety defect investigations, which are continuing. Now, on October the 2nd, a hit-and-run driver in San Francisco threw a pedestrian into the path of a driverless Cruise car, which pinned her underneath and dragged her for 20 feet. The driverless vehicle was trying to pull over, a maneuver that it was programmed to do if it detects a crash. So it did the wrong thing because that was what it was programmed to do. Now, about 3 weeks later, California regulators pulled Cruise's permit to operate autonomous vehicles, and the company later suspended its 400-car fleet across San Francisco and other cities. Now, Cruise board hired a law firm to investigate the company's response to the incident. A Cruise spokesman said the company puts cars on the road only after internal metrics determine that their on-road performance would be superior to human drivers. The company has said that in San Francisco, its driverless cars in the first 1 million miles were involved in 65% fewer collisions on the average than ride-hailed vehicles. And that is the number 2 problem. More on that later. GM, which owns about 80% of Cruise, wants to turn Cruise into an Uber-like ride-hailing service. Executives have said the business could generate as much as $50 billion in annual revenue by 2030, at higher profit margins than GM's traditional car-making business. In fact, Cruise executives have been adamant about its autonomous vehicles that they're safe and even superior to those with drivers. And in July, the company ran full-page ads in several newspapers stating, quote, "Humans are terrible drivers." And there lies problem number 3. More on that later. Cruise is no longer a science project, said Kyle Vogt, the former CEO who just resigned that same month. Quote, "There was once significant risk and reasons to doubt, but now it's a rapidly growing business." For years, Cruise had been part of a core part of GM's story as it tried to refashion itself as a technology company to fend off newcomers to the car business, such as Apple and Alphabet's Waymo. In a written statement Thursday, GM said it's committed to Cruise and commercializing its technology is still very steadfast. GM spent about $1 billion in early 2016 to buy Cruise, then a 40-employee San Francisco startup that had developed a system of radars and sensors to control some vehicle functions in highway driving, including steering and braking. Kyle Vogt, its co-founder, had studied computer science and electrical engineering at MIT from 2004 to 2008, and around that time he participated in federally sponsored autonomous driving competitions. By the time GM acquired Cruise, industry executives were viewing the ride-hailing companies and other technical innovations as threats to the car business. Many wanted in on the driverless car movement. So in early 2019, Mary Barra dispatched then GM President Dan Ammann from Detroit to San Francisco to serve as Cruise CEO, and Vogt became the Chief Technology Officer. During Ammann's tenure, he focused on building the operational side of the business in anticipation of a commercial launch. Under him, Cruise grew rapidly to more than 2,000 employees. Now, after years of testing, GM executives in 2017 said they aimed to deploy driverless ride-hailing service in a large scale in 2 years. But by 2019, 2 years later, Ammann walked back the goal, saying Cruise needed to log a lot more test miles. Well, where did Dan Ammann come from? He's a former Morgan Stanley banker, but he had been with GM for 10 years before joining Cruise. In other words, he was a GM guy. He was a car guy. But he was wary of introducing technology too early. He sometimes told colleagues he never wanted to get dragged before a congressional panel like GM executives had in 2014 amid a safety scandal involving faulty ignition switches linked to more than 120 deaths. Now, after 3 years of leading Cruise, Ammann was pushed out late 2021 because of a disagreement with Mary Barra over Cruise direction. Ammann wanted to keep a narrow focus on deploying robot taxi service in San Francisco only, while Barra wanted to integrate Cruise technology into GM cars. That's according to people familiar with the matter. So Ammann was out because he disagreed with the boss. They brought Kyle Vogt in, named him CEO in 2022. More than a decade earlier, he had co-founded Twitch. We're talking about Kyle Vogt now. He had co-founded Twitch. Well, what is Twitch? Twitch is an online video channel for watching and broadcasting people playing video games. That was his expertise. And there lies the fourth and biggest problem with this whole thing. More on that later. Vogt talked frequently about the life-saving potential of driverless technology and the urgency to roll out in larger scale. Now, within months, Vogt had been planning expansions in late 2022 into Austin and Phoenix, with additional cities to follow. He had a close working relationship with Barra, who mentored him on strategy, but also gave him independence to develop technology and business plans. Now, behind the scenes, though, some employees were noticing worrisome behavior with the technology. For years, Cruise Collision Detection Service had trouble identifying what it had hit and what it crashed into, and the cars also couldn't see objects low to the ground, 2 former employees said. In testing in spring of 2021, just 2 months before Cruise launched its first driverless taxi, the car drove right over cardboard boxes without stopping. Now, one employee described relaying concerns to a manager, and others at Cruise that cars weren't ready to be rolled out. But he was told there was pressure to launch an unpaid robo-taxi service by the end of 2021, which the company did for select numbers to the public for the first time. Now, since 2017, cars had also difficulties making left-hand turns through an intersection when the light was green. That's according to 4 separate Cruise employees. To make the turns, the cars had to detect cars coming from another direction, determine how fast they were going, and decide whether or not it was safe to turn, kind of like you and I do every time we drive. They struggled to make the calculations quickly and correctly, giving their nature to yield to other vehicles. Now, in 2022, a month before Cruise was scheduled to start offering paid rides in San Francisco, an anonymous letter was sent to a California regulator from a person who said they'd been working for the company for a number of years. The letter, which was viewed by the Wall Street Journal, warned that Cruise was moving too quickly and the vehicles were still regularly stopping unexpectedly at intersections and blocking lanes of traffic. The employee claimed that a risk assessment of a safety concern he had submitted through an internal reporting system hadn't been completed after 6 months. Quote, "My subjective opinion from experiencing this and speaking with others at the company is that the employees generally do not believe they are ready to launch it to the public, but there's fear of admitting this because of expectations from leadership and investors." A Cruise spokesman declined to comment on the letter or specific employee communications. He did point, however, to a company's 2022 safety record, which said, quote, Every cruise employee is empowered to provide insight and visibility into any potential safety concerns. Employees may have ways to raise concerns, including anonymously, said the report. Yeah, you can raise the concerns, but they were ignored. In other words, everybody can speak their mind, but it doesn't go anywhere. June 2022, a day after Cruz got his permit to start charging fares in California, one of his vehicles collided with another car while making a left-hand turn through the intersection. A vehicle's software failed to correctly assess the approaching vehicles, slammed on its brakes, and the company said later that an oncoming Toyota Prius that the Cruz vehicle assumed was turning right, continued straight and slammed into it. 3 months later, Cruz recalled the software on 80 vehicles to fix the left-hand turn problem. 3 months later. Not the next day, not the next week, not the next month, 3 months later. Now, regulators continued to receive reports of his vehicles clustering at intersections and sometimes unexpectedly just braking hard, leading to collisions. Photos posted to social media in late June captured a collection of unmanned Cruise vehicles stopped in the middle of the road. Employees had to manually retrieve them, according to a company spokesman. Now, Cruise vehicles are programmed to stop and pull over when they encounter situations they can't navigate, which sometimes cause them to obstruct roads and be hit by other cars. San Francisco residents and officials were growing frustrated by stranded Cruise cars on the city's already congested streets. At times, the immobilized vehicles interfered with crime scenes and fire scenes. In mid-August, a driverless Cruise vehicle collided with an emergency vehicle responding to a call, injuring a passenger. Shortly after, Cruise agreed to a California Motor Vehicle Department request to cut its active autonomous car fleet in half while the agency conducted an investigation. Later on, it's an autonomous shuttle, a toaster-shaped vehicle called the Origin, developed for use as a robotaxi, hit the building in Austin. Now, the test vehicle had been traveling down the road when it unexpectedly had a software malfunction and stopped for several minutes. The Cruise employee assumed remote control and shifted the car out of park, and that's when his vehicle reared off the road and hit the building with enough force to knock an 8-inch hole into the brick wall. Cruise said the vehicle was being used in testing, and the remote assistance operator erred when he moved the car. GM, which builds the Origin for Cruise, said recently it was pausing production after making a small amount of pre-commercial vehicles, but it believes the shuttle is the first scalable vehicle ever designed specifically for autonomous rides, and it will make transportation more accessible. Now, in the October pedestrian incident in California, Cruise said his driverless car had detected a collision and attempted to brake aggressively when a woman struck by another car landed in his path. The Cruise vehicle came to a stop on top of the pedestrian, then tried to pull aside with her underneath, leaving her with traumatic injuries. And it goes on and on and on and on. On October 24th, Mary Barra touted Cruise's safety record to Wall Street analysts, saying that the service had eclipsed 5 million driverless miles. Okay? Now, as Cruise continues to push the boundaries of what AV technology can deliver to society, safety is always at the forefront. That's problem number 5. Hours later, California DMV yanked Cruise operational permits, effectively putting its vehicles out of business for the state. Now, pardon me, what does all that mean? There are so many problems with this whole thing. 5 problems that I identified. The number one, not the number one problem, but problem number 1. Kyle Vogt, when they described him in the press release, they described him as a vegan who's run marathons on 7 continents. Now, first of all, the fact that he's a vegan, what does that have to do with anything? Personally, I think if you're a vegan, that's an unhealthy choice, but that's your business. If you want to be a vegan, that's fine. But why is that a plus? It's like to say I'm a vegan, so that makes me exceptional. It's like saying, well, I'm a brunette, so that makes me exceptional. No, it means nothing. Run marathons on 7 continents? Okay, so you're a good runner and you're healthy. What's that got to do with running a car company? Problem number 2, 65% less crashes than humans. Really? Here's the thing about an accident. Every accident, there's somebody at fault. Sometimes the first party, sometimes the second party, sometimes both parties. But everybody is at fault. Everybody. Who is at fault with 100% of the cruise accidents? Crews. Not the person driving, because the person driving is Cruise, okay? If Cruise were a human, it would have its license revoked because they're responsible for 100% of its accidents. Problem number 3. The full-page ad said, humans are terrible drivers. Note to Mary Barra, who may be a technology wizard. I don't know. I'll trust that. Humans are terrible drivers. Friends, sales and marketing 101, don't belittle your customers, okay? Nice move, Mary Barra. You belittled every one of your potential customers who will buy a GM car, every one of them. We're going to skip number 4. I'm doing number 4 last because that's the biggest problem with this whole thing. Let's go to number 5. Mary Barra says, safety is always at the forefront. Rule number 2 for sales and marketing 101. Don't lie to your customer. Nobody believes that safety is at the forefront because when you had all kinds of problems, you didn't even update the software for 3 months after it had a major crash. 3 months later, you decide to go ahead and, let's go ahead and update the software. Maybe this isn't so good, okay? Nobody believes that safety is at the forefront. That's just a talking point. Now let's go back to point number 4, which is the biggest problem, the absolute biggest problem with Cruise. And that's the guy in charge, Kyle Vogt. Kyle Vogt replaced Dan Amon. Dan Amon was a Morgan Stanley businessman who had spent 10 years with GM. He was a GM guy. He was a car guy, okay? A car guy with a car company. Makes sense. What was Kyle Vogt's big accomplishment? He founded Twitch, an online video channel for watching and broadcasting people playing video games. I'm going to repeat that. He founded Twitch, an online video channel for watching and broadcasting people playing video games. The biggest problem is that Mary Barra replaced a Morgan Stanley businessman with a car background. She said that Cruise needed work with a yes man, so she replaced him with Kyle Vogt, who was a yes man. And what was his biggest accomplishment? My opinion, he's a video game play baby. That's the biggest problem with this whole thing. You're a car company and you put your biggest tool out there that's going to change the company. You gave it to a video game play baby. Now, EVs and Cruise, along with the new union contract, friends, this could well break GM. 16% of their operating profits have gone into the losses in that bottomless hole. So you think to yourself, well, what if GM goes bankrupt? Oh my gosh, that would be terrible. What happened the last time GM went bankrupt? Yeah, that's right. Uncle Sugar just bailed them out. Nah, no big deal. We made the wrong choices again. We're broke again. Give us more money. You think it couldn't happen? Happened in 2018 or 2008. Actually, 2008 is when the problem happened. I think they got bailed out a few years after that. So it's been a little over 10 years since they got bailed out last time. Okay. Now, they couldn't give the union guys and gals their big contract because, well, we don't have the money. We spent it on electric cars and Cruise and electric cars that nobody wants, which is item number 2 in this whole technology is a tool, not a deity, okay? What have most people said about electric cars? Myself included, by the way. I think electric cars are the future. I do believe that. I think one day in the future, the vast majority of cars will be electric cars. Now, I don't think they'll all ever be electric cars, but really, they're easier, they're simpler. When they get the batteries and the charging straightened out, they're going to be fine. When they fix the grid, it's going to be fine. But not by 2030 like the government wants them to do, okay? America's transition to electric vehicles is running into an unexpected snarl. Because what's the biggest problem with electric cars right now? Why the batteries are too expensive. The lithium, the cobalt, the other minerals needed for EV batteries, they're too expensive. Well, guess what's happened? There's been a surprising crash in prices for lithium, cobalt, and nickel. The big 3 that are needed for batteries. So you think, oh, that's great. The prices are dropping for these minerals, so the price for batteries will drop. Not so fast. This situation is a bit dangerous because the prices are now so low, they're closing the mines. That's right. They should be opening mines, but they're closing mines. Why? Because they can't get the price for the lithium or the cobalt or the nickel to make them profitable. In fact, battery-grade lithium prices are down more than 60% this year, while nickel, graphite, and cobalt are down about 30%. That's according to the Benchmark Mineral Intelligence Agency. And the big deal is a weaker than expected economy after COVID-19 in China. And they're the biggest consumers of the metals. They're the biggest battery makers, okay? Slowing EV demand has also weighed on prices, okay? On Tuesday, Ford decided to pull back its decision to downsize plants for a Michigan battery factory. The sliding prices mark a turnaround when car makers rolled out ambitious plans to switch their fleets to EVs and metal prices skyrocketed, okay? Electric vehicles now account for 8% of U.S. auto sales. That was in the third quarter of this year. That's according to Cox Automotive. The Biden administration said he wants half of all new vehicles to be electric by 2030. This year's plunge say that ain't going to be a smooth ride. Now, why don't people want vehicles, electric vehicles? Well, they're too expensive. There's no charging stations. And the people who wanted the electric vehicles are the tech guys. They've bought them. Joe Public, for the most part, doesn't want them. Maybe one day they will. In fact, I think one day they will, but not now. So people stop buying them. Supply and demand means the price of battery minerals went down. So much so that supply and demand says if they can't get high prices for the elements, they can't make the battery. They can't make money. So they stop mining. So it's a vicious circle. They need more batteries. Now the price has gone down, but now they can't get the elements because the price is too low. That is bizarre, folks, but that's how things work. But the thing is, and here's the biggest problem, because this is a problem, and the Biden administration has said that it's working to ease pressures. In fact, it recently announced up to $3.5 billion will be available from a 2021 infrastructure law to boost production of batteries and battery materials. In other words, remember that 2021 infrastructure law? We're gonna build new roads for the country, okay? Which actually I didn't think it was a bad deal because the roads in this country need to be improved. I was on the record of saying I thought this was a good thing because good roads benefit everybody. So they're taking some of this money and they're going to go ahead and subsidize the battery factories and the mineral guys because they can't get enough money for their batteries to make them profitable. That is bizarre. That is bizarre. The main problem with electric cars, as I've said before, it has nothing to do with the technology. Electric cars will be very popular with the public as soon as they become better than an ICE car, okay, an internal combustion engine. Just like, when did the internal combustion engine overtake horses? When they became the better choice. There was no government law that said, you know what, by 2021, horses are going to be outlawed because everybody has to drive a car. That's never been done. But nobody drives a horse down Main Street anymore. Why? Because cars are much more reliable. And getting back to the self-driving cars, the dirty little secret about self-driving cars, I mean, if you really want to get into a self-driving vehicle where you can just get in and it magically takes you from point A to point B, they've already got that. It's called a train. Okay? Yeah, they have conductors, but for the most part, they're on automation. But they're on tracks, so they can't make a wrong turn. Okay? Self-driving cars are the same as trains. They've had them for years and years and years. Trains, subways, trams, streetcars. This is nothing new. But people don't want to have to walk an extra block because bus stations and train stations are only in certain places. Self-driving cars will never work. And the reason is because when somebody has an accident, and I don't care if it's Maybe it is less. Maybe the self-driving cars will wreck less. But again, if somebody runs into me and causes me pain and injury, I'm going to sue them for as much as I can because they're in the wrong. And basically, self-driving cars are never going to be a thing because they can never be profitable. Even if they do turn into the black, they're going to be, even if they cause just a handful of deaths a year, every one of those deaths are going to have a lawsuit. And basically, the lawsuit is going to be whatever the company made. Am I right? Am I wrong? I'll welcome the emails once again, jamesstrongshow@hotmail.com. That's it. I'm done. jamesstrongshow@hotmail.com is the email address. Send me your questions. Send me your comments. I love to correspond with the listeners. It's a lot of fun for me. Or just go ahead and ask for me to send you a link, and I will send you the link to the podcast. You can download it and listen to it at your leisure. That's it. We're done. Until next time, this is James Strong saying adios.